You think you are defending justice when you scream, slam doors, or type out a furious comment, "I am sorry to break it to you," but you are not protecting justice. You are only defending your own pathetic, fragile ego. Think about the very last time someone wronged you. Maybe a coworker whispered behind your back, a friend casually broke a promise, or a reckless driver abruptly cut you off on the freeway while you were cruising at 65 miles per hour. Instantly, your blood boiled. The ego desperately wants to feel superior, so it immediately builds a compelling, cinematic story in your head. In this perfectly crafted fiction, you are the innocent, flawless victim, a beacon of morality, and the other person is the toxic, evil villain who woke up today just to ruin your life. You convince yourself that your rage is completely justified, that you are the lone warrior of truth holding the line against a world of idiots. But here is the brutal, bitter psychological truth that you and most people will aggressively deny. Your self-righteous anger is almost never about right and wrong. It is almost always about disguised pride. Modern psychology has a clinical term for this convenient little delusion that you live in every day, and it is called the projection bias. This is the ingrained human tendency to dramatically exaggerate the faults of everyone else while completely minimizing or entirely ignoring our own. Notice how breathtakingly hypocritical we are on a daily basis. When we tell a white lie, lose our patience, or hurt someone, we quietly look the other way. We rationalize it in a split second. We tell ourselves that we did not really mean to do it, that we actually meant well, or that it was just a one-time exception because we only had a few hours of sleep and were under a lot of stress. But the exact moment someone else makes that identical mistake, we react violently. We point our fingers right in their face and judge them with the wrath of an unforgiving God. We use our sudden outburst of anger to artificially elevate ourselves and look down on them from our imaginary pedestal. This is the ultimate psychological unmasking. Your anger is a Trojan horse. It masquerades as a noble crusade for morality. But deep inside the wooden belly of that horse, it is just a desperate, scrambling attempt to protect a bruised self-image that cannot handle reality. The great Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius knew this harsh truth 2,000 years ago. He urged us to look inward before condemning others, recognizing that it is incredibly easy to see the gaping flaws in our neighbors while conveniently forgetting that we too have been impatient, jealous, and profoundly careless. The philosopher Epictetus taught a profound lesson when he said that when you are offended by the faults of others, you must immediately look at yourself and consider your own faults. And only then will you forget your anger. We constantly build towering monuments to our own supposed virtues, while enthusiastically digging shallow graves for the mistakes of others. Every single time you erupt in fury because someone did not respect you enough, did not listen to you fast enough, or inconvenienced you for a few seconds, you are not acting as a supreme judge of fairness. You are acting as a fragile dictator whose tiny, imaginary empire has just been insulted. This anger you hold on to so tightly is not a mighty shield of justice. It is a crumbling wall of arrogance. You think your anger makes you look strong, intimidating, and in charge. But it actually exposes your deepest psychological weakness to everyone in the room. It shows the world that your emotional baseline is so incredibly weak and unstable that a mere careless comment, a minor traffic incident, or a delayed cup of coffee can completely hijack your central nervous system. You are literally handing over the remote control of your own mind to any random stranger passing by on the street. Before you explode next time, before you let that destructive fire burn down your own house, pause and ask yourself a brutally honest question. Are you really fighting against a monumental injustice? Or are you just throwing a tantrum because your pride got a little scratch? It is time to stop kidding yourself because the truth is out. Now that we have stripped away the illusion of your righteous crusade, let us perform a clinical autopsy on this temporary insanity you call anger. The legendary Stoic philosopher Seneca did not mince words when he studied this emotion. He diagnosed anger as a short-lived madness, a toxic disease that completely overthrows the rational mind. Seneca offered a metaphor that is so brutally accurate, it should make you rethink every tantrum you have ever thrown. He said that an angry person is exactly like a towering, magnificent building that suddenly collapses. As it falls, it is reduced to worthless rubble, even as it crushes everything it lands upon. Think about the profound weight of that image. When you lose your temper, you believe you are dropping a heavy hammer on someone else, punishing them for their absolute incompetence or their blatant disrespect. But in reality, you are the building. You are the one collapsing. Your structural integrity is shattering. Your peace of mind is disintegrating, and you are burying your own dignity under a massive pile of emotional debris. You are inflicting massive psychological damage upon yourself just to prove a point to a universe that simply does not care. And why does this devastating collapse happen? Why do you let a trivial inconvenience detonate your entire emotional foundation? This brings us to the ultimate psychological test, a harsh boundary line that the ancient Stoics called the dichotomy of control. Every single ounce of your daily frustration, every clenched fist and every elevated heartbeat originates from one pathetic delusion. You believe on deep down in your fragile ego that you possess the power to control things that are entirely outside of your jurisdiction. The Stoic teacher Epictetus laid out the ultimate truth 2 millennia ago. There are things that are within your power, like your own choices, your own reactions, your perceptions, and your own character. And there are things that are completely beyond your power, which includes the weather, the national economy, the slow traffic on the interstate, and most importantly, the opinions, words, and actions of other people. When you scream at a reckless driver who cut you off on the highway, or when you fume over a coworker who failed to meet a crucial deadline, you are essentially screaming at the wind for blowing in the wrong direction. You are acting like a delusional tyrant, demanding that the ocean stop making waves. You cannot control what other people do, say, or think. When you tie your emotional stability to the unpredictable behavior of random strangers, you are voluntarily chaining yourself to a runaway train and handing the controls over to a complete maniac. You must recognize that the external world is a chaotic, uncontrollable domain, and attempting to govern it will only breed bitter frustration and blinding rage. So how do you stop the building from collapsing? How do you reclaim your mind from this pathetic state of constant reactivity? The cure requires mastering the secret techniques of Roman emperors. The most lethal weapon against anger is not forced suppression, it is deliberate delay. Before the great emperor Augustus ruled the known world, his Stoic mentor gave him a piece of advice that changed history. He told the emperor that whenever he felt the sudden urge to erupt in anger, he must not say or do a single thing before repeating to himself the 24 letters of the alphabet. This sounds childishly simple, but it is an incredibly powerful psychological circuit breaker. Anger absolutely thrives on impulsive, lightning-fast reactions. By forcing a solid wedge of time between the initial trigger and your response, you literally starve the fire of its oxygen. You give your rational brain exactly enough time to step in and save you from making a complete fool of yourself. But delaying the explosion is only the first step in the protocol. To truly master your internal empire, you must deploy the ancient art of mental distancing. Instead of diving headfirst into the boiling ocean of your emotions, you must learn to step back and invoke your inner observer. Picture yourself standing on a high balcony, looking down at your own mind. When the surge of rage approaches, do not identify with it. Watch it arrive like a dark storm cloud passing over a mountain range. You observe the physical sensations, the sudden tightening of your chest, the rising heat in your face, but you do not claim them as your identity. You say to yourself that you are experiencing the temporary sensation of anger, but you are not the anger itself. By objectifying your own rage, you strip away its deceptive power. leaving you standing as the calm, untouchable center in the middle of a chaotic world. So now you are standing on that high balcony, observing your mind, completely detached from the chaos. You have mastered the delay of the 24 letters, and you have fully embraced the dichotomy of control. The logical conclusion, according to orthodox Stoic doctrine, is that you must now eradicate anger entirely from your human experience. Right, you must strive to become a cold, unfeeling stone statue, entirely passive to the moving world around you. I am about to tell you something that will completely shatter everything you just learned. That extreme idea is a 2,500-year-old lie. It is a fundamental, dangerous misunderstanding of the human condition. Eradicating your anger completely is not a towering virtue. It is actually a profound vice. The ultimate plot twist is that anger, when finally stripped of the pathetic, fragile ego we dissected earlier, is an incredible evolutionary gift. It is your built-in mechanism for moral accountability. Think about it very carefully. If you witness a terrible injustice, if you see the innocent being harmed or exploited, and you feel absolutely nothing but calm indifference, you are not being a wise philosopher. You are actively acquiescing in evil. You are becoming entirely complicit. Modern scholars and evolutionary psychologists have proven that anger is an entirely natural, absolutely necessary instrument for personality growth and for demanding basic human respect from those who would otherwise trample over you. But the absolute secret is not just feeling the emotion. The secret is channeling it. When you finally stop wasting your precious rage on petty inconveniences and bruised pride, you unlock anger as a supreme superpower for unprecedented creativity and monumental change. Consider the great Martin Luther King Jr. He did not simply sit back and calmly observe racial injustice in America with a domesticated, stoic smile. He deliberately transmuted the massive, inchoate rage of an entire marginalized people into a highly constructive, world-changing channel of action. That was pure, directed rage driving a revolution. Consider the legendary artist Pablo Picasso. When the town of Guernica was ruthlessly bombed, killing over 1,000 innocent men, women, and children, Picasso did not practice mental distancing to calm his nerves. He was entirely consumed by visceral, unapologetic outrage. He used that explosive anger as a literal instrument of war, pouring it onto a massive canvas in only 35 days to create the greatest anti-war painting in human history. His anger was a fierce catalyst, producing a timeless masterpiece of rage in oil. Or listen to the violent, storming, triumphant opening bars of Beethoven and his immortal symphonies. That is not the sound of a man suppressing his intense emotions. That is the sound of a genius channeling a furious temperament into a magnificent creation. Science itself firmly backs this up. Researchers at the University of California have demonstrated that anger actually boosts analytical thinking and significantly improves decision-making because an angry mind zeroes in on the target and completely ignores less useful information. Anger obeys its own distinct, powerful logic. It can galvanize coalitions, force people to take you seriously, and drive you to break through the absolute limits of your own potential. So, what is the final, brutal truth? The ancient Romans were entirely right that you must stop acting like a collapsing building over a delayed cup of coffee or a careless highway insult. You must absolutely kill the anger that stems from your cheap, desperate need to constantly feel superior to everyone else. But you must never extinguish the fire entirely. You desperately need that fire. Anger is an immense, violent energy source. If you let it run wild, it will burn your entire life to the ground. But if you capture it, if you build a heavy iron furnace around it to control the blaze, that exact same fire will forge historical masterpieces, demand unyielding justice, and power the engine of your greatest lifetime achievements. Stop wasting your anger on the pathetic defense of a fragile ego. and start saving that fiery energy to build something truly magnificent. So how do you actually forge this heavy iron furnace in your own daily life and definitively know when your anger is merely the pathetic defense of a fragile ego versus when it is the righteous, necessary fire of moral accountability? The answer lies in brutally analyzing exactly what you are demanding from the external world. If you are screaming at a customer service representative because your delivery was delayed by 24 hours, or if you are secretly seething with toxic resentment because a coworker received public praise instead of you, you are completely drowning in disguised pride. You are deeply infected by the projection bias we exposed earlier, demanding that the entire universe cater to your infinite vanity. That is the corrosive, destructive anger that the ancient Roman philosophers desperately warned us about. The exact kind of short-lived madness that reduces your rational mind to worthless, smoking rubble. But there is a completely different side to this emotional spectrum. If you see someone being actively exploited, if you witness a profound, undeniable injustice in your local community, or if a toxic individual systematically violates your fundamental human boundaries, and you feel absolutely nothing but passive indifference, you have a massive psychological deficit. The contemporary philosopher Agnes Callard, echoing the profound wisdom of Thomas Aquinas, boldly claimed that failing to get angry when you actually have a legitimate cause is a severe moral failure. If you quash your natural anger with too heavy of a hand, you completely lose your self-respect and your entire moral footing. Suppressing your innate outrage in the face of genuine wrongdoing is not spiritual enlightenment. It is pure cowardice and direct acquiescence in evil. The pioneering philosopher Adam Smith observed that anger is not always about cruel retaliation. It's true. Deep psychological aim is often to issue a strict, uncompromising demand for basic human respect. It is your subconscious mind screaming that you, or an innocent person, did not deserve to be treated in such a degrading, humiliating manner. This means that an individual who never feels the burning heat of anger when witnessing a real injustice has become completely morally malformed. They have voluntarily deactivated their own internal alarm system. Therefore, your ultimate objective in life is not to become a cold, unfeeling, stone robot who accepts every insult and injury with a blank, empty stare. Your true goal is to become a master architect of your own emotional energy. You must aggressively and ruthlessly filter your psychological triggers. When minor inconveniences strike, when freeway traffic slows to a painful crawl, or when an ignorant stranger makes a careless comment, you must immediately deploy the Emperor Augustus protocol. Count your 24 letters, practice your mental distancing from the high balcony, and let your pathetic, hungry ego die of absolute starvation. Let the petty insult pass right through your mind like the wind passing through an empty, open room. Do not ever let a minor scratch on your fragile pride collapse your entire psychological foundation. But when the stakes are genuinely high, when your core moral values are under a deliberate attack, or when you are confronted with absolute, undeniable injustice, you must consciously summon the fire. You do not let the fire control you. You firmly control the fire. You carefully compress that raw, visceral rage into a highly focused, blindingly bright beam of analytical thinking and relentless, constructive action. You use it to set impenetrable, steel boundaries, to fiercely advocate for those who cannot speak for themselves, and to power the long, exhausting pursuit of your greatest lifetime ambitions. Anger is without a doubt the most misunderstood emotion in the entire human repertoire. It is not an inherently evil, demonic force, nor is it a useless, evolutionary leftover from the Stone Age. It is a highly potent, incredibly dangerous aviation fuel. If you carelessly spill it everywhere over every petty, meaningless grievance, you will absolutely burn your own life down and alienate every single person who cares about you. But if you build a magnificent, disciplined, unbreakable engine to contain it, That exact same fuel will generate enough thrust to drive you through every single limitation the world tries to place upon you. The brutal, unavoidable truth is that you have been completely misusing your anger for your entire life. You have been foolishly treating it as a cheap, plastic shield to defend your deepest insecurities, instead of respecting it as a profound, evolutionary gift for moral clarity and explosive creativity. It is time to finally drop the pathetic victim mentality. Stop endlessly protecting your fragile pride and start harnessing the ultimate, world-changing power of your mind. Right now, you are standing at the ultimate psychological crossroads of your entire life. You now possess the ancient, forbidden knowledge of the Roman emperors and the fierce, unyielding wisdom of the greatest creators in history. You understand that your mind is a remarkably powerful engine, and for years, you have been pouring premium aviation fuel directly onto the dirt. You have been wasting your most potent energy on meaningless arguments, petty jealousies, and the pathetic defense of a fragile ego. Think about the sheer magnitude of mental energy you have completely incinerated over the last 10 years alone. You burned through your emotional reserves just because someone looked at you the wrong way at the grocery store. A barista messed up your morning coffee order, or a random stranger on the internet aggressively disagreed with your political opinion. That is literally thousands of hours of highly concentrated, creative energy that you simply flushed down the drain. You were acting like a delusional beggar furiously defending a worthless pile of rocks, completely ignoring the massive gold mine waiting to be excavated right beneath your own feet. But starting today, right in this exact moment, that tragic waste of human potential stops permanently. You are no longer going to be the collapsing building that the great philosopher Seneca warned us about. You are going to become the master architect of your own destiny. From this day forward, you are going to draw an absolute, impenetrable boundary line between the trivial annoyances of daily life and the profound challenges of your moral character. When the predictable inconveniences of the modern world come knocking at your front door, you will not react. When the interstate traffic is backed up for 10 miles under the blazing summer sun, when your coworker makes a passive-aggressive comment during a corporate meeting, or when your cross-country flight gets delayed by 4 excruciating hours, you are going to simply smile. You are going to smile with the cold, calculated detachment of a true Stoic master. You will silently count the 24 letters of the alphabet. You will mentally step out onto that high balcony, and you will watch those petty irritations pass by like harmless dark clouds in the sky. You will explicitly refuse to give them even a single drop of your precious emotional fuel. You will actively starve your fragile pride until it completely disappears from your psychological framework. You will no longer allow the chaotic, entirely unpredictable external world to dictate the internal weather of your own mind. You are finally reclaiming the throne of your own consciousness. But, and this is the absolute most critical distinction you will ever make in your entire lifetime, when you encounter something that actually truly matters, you will not run away and hide behind a mask of fake enlightenment. When you witness a genuine, undeniable injustice in your community, when a toxic individual attempts to aggressively cross your fundamental human boundaries, or when you face a monumental obstacle standing directly between you and your ultimate life purpose, you will not practice quiet resignation. You will reach deep down into that heavy iron furnace we built, and you will consciously unleash the fire. You will not use this magnificent fire to scream, cry, or throw a childish tantrum like an unformed toddler. You will use it to work significantly harder, to think much sharper, and to build something so incredibly undeniable that the entire world has absolutely no choice but to respect it. You will channel the relentless, world-changing energy of Martin Luther King Jr. and the fierce, highly concentrated brilliance of Pablo Picasso. You will forcefully transform your raw outrage into absolute, undeniable excellence. Anger is no longer your cruel master. It is now your most obedient and powerful tool. It is the heavy steel hammer you will use to forge your ultimate legacy on the hard anvil of reality. You must immediately stop demanding that the world cater to your fragile feelings. The universe does not care about your bruised ego, and it never will. But the universe will absolutely move out of the way for a person who has completely mastered their own mind and directed their fierce emotional fire toward a singular, magnificent goal. Do not ever apologize for the massive fire burning inside of your chest, but demand of yourself that you use it exclusively to illuminate the darkness. Demand uncompromising justice and fiercely build your empire. The days of playing the flawless victim are officially over forever. It is time to step boldly into the arena, permanently drop the heavy mask of the fragile ego, and finally use your true, awakened power to conquer your life. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and stepping out into the world with this profound, newly forged psychological armor. You are no longer the fragile, reactive puppet that you used to be, constantly dancing on the strings pulled by other people and their unpredictable behavior. The days of letting a careless comment from a coworker or a minor inconvenience completely derail your entire week are officially over. You have fundamentally rewired your brain. But to truly solidify this magnificent transformation, you must deeply understand one final, crucial paradigm shift. For centuries, orthodox philosophers have tried to convince humanity that an enlightened individual must permanently extinguish all their intense emotions, essentially turning themselves into a cold, unfeeling stone statue. That is the ultimate lie of extreme Stoicism that you must now completely reject. The contemporary thinker David Ashton profoundly noted that anger is an essential, beautiful part of the rich emotional repertoire with which human beings are naturally endowed. When it is stripped of that pathetic, self-serving ego, anger is not a disease, it is a magnificent, evolutionary gift. It is the exact psychological mechanism that allows you to establish a deep sense of personal consistency, a fierce demand for basic human respect, and an unbreakable boundary against those who would try to exploit you. Think about the profound wisdom of the philosopher Adam Smith, who realized that the true, elevated purpose of anger is not about inflicting cruel, senseless punishment on someone else. The true purpose is to issue a strict, uncompromising moral demand. It is your soul standing up straight and boldly declaring that you, or the innocent people around you, do not deserve to be treated with disrespect. This means that if you completely suppress your anger in the face of genuine, undeniable injustice, you are not being wise or deeply philosophical. You are voluntarily mutilating your own moral compass. You are committing a profound psychological vice. Therefore, your ultimate mission is to perfectly synthesize these two seemingly opposing forces. You must meticulously cultivate the unbreakable, cold discipline of the ancient Roman emperors. Using their incredible mental distancing and their 24-letter delay tactics to completely starve your fragile ego. You must let your disguised pride wither away and die a quiet death. But simultaneously, you must carefully preserve the burning, passionate fire of the world's greatest creators and revolutionaries. You must keep that heavy iron furnace burning incredibly hot in the deepest part of your mind. When the world presents you with a genuine challenge, a profound injustice, or a monumental obstacle that stands between you and your ultimate destiny, you will not retreat into passive, stoic indifference. You will deliberately open the furnace door. You will consciously channel that massive, violent energy into a blindingly focused laser beam of pure, constructive action. You will use the absolute power of your outrage to write your masterpiece, to build your impenetrable empire, to fiercely defend the vulnerable, and to push through the absolute limits of human endurance. You will completely transcend the pathetic victim mentality that keeps 99% of the global population trapped in a perpetual cycle of petty grievances and bitter resentment. You are stepping into an entirely new paradigm of human existence. You are no longer terrified of your own emotions, and you are no longer a slave to them either. You are the supreme commander of your internal universe. The next time you feel that familiar, rising heat in your chest, do not panic and do not immediately explode like a collapsing building. Pause, take a deep breath, and stand perfectly still on your mental balcony. Ask yourself one final, brutally honest question. Is this the pathetic, whimpering voice of my fragile ego demanding cheap attention? Or is this the deep, roaring fire of my moral character demanding ultimate justice and absolute excellence? If it is the ego, let it go completely. Let it blow away like dust in the wind. But if it is the fire of excellence, do not you dare extinguish it. Harness that magnificent fire, direct it with absolute precision, and use it to permanently change the world around you. You are now at the absolute pinnacle of this psychological awakening. You have completely dismantled the pathetic illusion of the fragile ego, and you have learned to separate the meaningless noise of the world from the profound fire of your own moral character. But the ultimate test of this transformation is not what you understand right now in this exact moment while you are listening to these words. The ultimate test is what you are going to do tomorrow morning when the chaotic, unpredictable world violently crashes into your carefully planned schedule. When someone deeply insults you, when a driver recklessly cuts you off on the freeway, or when the universe hands you a completely unfair outcome, what will be your default reaction? The vast majority of human beings will immediately default back to their deeply ingrained biological programming. They will gladly surrender their mental sovereignty, let the projection bias take over, and throw away their precious energy to desperately defend an imaginary throne. They will continue to act like that collapsing building, turning their own minds into worthless rubble just to prove a meaningless point to strangers who do not even care about them. But you are no longer a part of that majority. You are going to choose the path of the master architect. You are going to actively practice the absolute highest form of emotional intelligence every single day. You will use the 24-letter delay to completely starve the petty irritations that try to steal your focus. You will stand tall on your mental balcony, safely detached from the chaotic storm, and watch the endless parade of human ignorance walk right past you without giving it even a single ounce of your power. You will completely stop wasting your life force on things that you absolutely cannot control. Every single interaction you have from now on is a massive opportunity to practice this profound, emotional alchemy. Imagine walking into a high-pressure environment where everyone around you is completely losing their minds, giving into panic and reactive rage. You will be the absolute calm center of the storm. Because you have mastered the dichotomy of control, you will clearly see that their panic is their problem, not yours. You will observe their collapsing buildings and quietly maintain your own structural integrity. However, when the universe presents a genuine threat to your core values, when you witness an undeniable injustice, or when a monumental obstacle attempts to block your ultimate life purpose, you will not cower in the corner with a fake smile of passive acceptance. You will consciously, deliberately, and fiercely open the heavy iron doors of your internal furnace. You will let the fire of your righteous, moral outrage burn incredibly bright, but instead of letting that flame consume you, you will forge it into a razor-sharp sword of pure, constructive action. You will use it to demand unwavering respect, to fiercely protect the innocent, and to shatter every single limitation that society tries to place upon your potential. You will channel the legendary, world-changing energy of the greatest creators and revolutionaries who understood that true anger is an evolutionary gift designed to elevate the human condition. You have a finite amount of psychological energy to spend during your brief time on this earth. Do not spend it aggressively arguing with fools. Do not spend it endlessly defending a fragile pride that does nothing but hold you back from your ultimate destiny. Guard your emotional fire with your life, because that fire is the exact same energy you desperately need to build your empire, to leave a permanent mark on the history of the world, and to become the absolute best version of yourself. The world naturally bows down to individuals who possess this incredibly rare combination of absolute calm in the face of trivial nonsense and terrifying, unstoppable fire in the face of genuine adversity. The choice is now entirely yours. You can either remain a pathetic slave to every random trigger that passes by, constantly burning down your own house to keep your ego warm, or you can step boldly into the arena, harness the ultimate power of your mind, and completely conquer your reality. Stop getting angry over absolute nothingness and start using your magnificent fire to build your unstoppable legacy. Do not think for a single second that this profound transformation is going to be easy, because your brain is biologically hardwired to take the path of least resistance. Every single day, you are going to be surrounded by millions of people who actively choose the comfortable, pathetic illusion of the fragile ego. You will see them everywhere you go in your daily life. You will watch them loudly complain about the temperature of their morning coffee, completely lose their minds over a 10-minute traffic delay on the interstate, and aggressively argue with anonymous strangers on the internet until 3 o'clock in the morning. They are permanently trapped in a vicious cycle of emotional poverty, constantly leaking their most valuable psychological energy over absolute nonsense. But you are now operating on an entirely different frequency. You have unlocked the ultimate psychological secret that both ancient philosophers and modern neuroscientists have definitively confirmed. This is not just a motivational theory. It is a proven, undeniable biological reality. Researchers at the University of California conducted extensive studies and discovered something that completely shatters the traditional, weak understanding of human emotion. They proved that anger, when it is properly channeled and completely stripped of petty personal pride, actually significantly boosts your analytical thinking. Their scientific data clearly shows that an angry mind becomes profoundly hyper-focused, immediately ignoring useless background information and zeroing in on the ultimate objective with terrifying precision. This means that when you finally stop wasting your anger on minor daily inconveniences, you are literally rewiring your biological brain to become a highly efficient, absolutely unstoppable problem-solving machine. When you feel that intense, familiar heat rising in your chest because you have encountered a genuine obstacle or a profound moral injustice, your brain is not failing you. It is actually preparing you for absolute victory. It is giving you a massive, highly concentrated dose of evolutionary focus. The great thinkers like Adam Smith understood this centuries ago when they realized that true anger is a powerful demand for basic human respect, not a childish tantrum. This is exactly why you must fiercely guard your internal emotional furnace. If you carelessly waste that precious biological fuel on a passive-aggressive comment from a coworker, you will have absolutely nothing left in the tank when it is time to build your empire, protect your family, or defend your core values. You must become a ruthless, unforgiving auditor of your own mental energy. Every single time a potential trigger presents itself, you must immediately ask yourself if this specific situation is truly worth burning your highly concentrated, creative fuel. If the answer is no, you immediately deploy the 24 letters of the alphabet. You step out onto your high mental balcony, completely detach yourself from the chaotic situation, and let the trivial annoyance pass by like a harmless breeze. You watch the other person completely lose their temper, and you realize that they are simply a collapsing building, destroying their own structural integrity while you remain perfectly solid and completely untouched. But when the answer is absolutely yes, when you are facing a monumental challenge that actually matters to your ultimate legacy, you do not suppress a single thing. You deliberately open the heavy iron doors of your internal furnace, and you let that massive, roaring fire completely consume your hesitation, your fear, and your self-doubt. You use that blindingly bright beam of analytical focus to completely outwork, outsmart, and outlast every single person who tries to stand in your way. You forcefully transform your raw, visceral outrage into a highly disciplined, relentless pursuit of pure excellence. The fragile ego always demands immediate, loud, and entirely useless retaliation, but the master architect demands permanent, undeniable results. You are no longer fighting for cheap superiority. You are fighting for ultimate mastery over your own existence. The brutal truth is that your anger has always been your greatest potential weapon, but you have been foolishly holding it by the blade for your entire life, constantly cutting your own hands and bleeding out over things that simply do not matter. It is time to finally grab that heavy weapon by the handle. It is time to completely starve your desperate, hungry pride and fully awaken the sleeping giant of your moral and creative power. You have the ancient, cold discipline of the Roman emperors, the relentless, passionate fire of the greatest artists in human history, and the absolute proof of modern science actively backing you up. There are absolutely no more excuses left for you to play the pathetic role of the flawless victim. Step out of the shadows right now. Harness the magnificent fire burning inside of your chest, and start building a life so incredibly powerful that the world simply cannot ignore you. You are now standing at the absolute precipice of a completely new existence, looking down at the very ashes of your old, reactive self. The pathetic, fragile ego that used to dictate your every waking moment is finally dead, starved of the precious emotional oxygen it desperately needed to survive. But as you stand there, completely detached and perfectly calm, you must fully embrace the ultimate paradox that we have uncovered today. We spent all this time tearing down the illusion of your self-righteous anger, exposing it as nothing more than a cheap, plastic mask for your bruised pride. We used the cold, calculating wisdom of the ancient Roman emperors to build an impenetrable fortress around your mind, teaching you to deploy the 24-letter delay and step out onto the high mental balcony of the observer. We proved that getting mad at a delayed flight, a rude cashier, or a slow driver on the interstate is the equivalent of voluntarily crushing yourself under a collapsing building. But the absolute greatest deception in human history, the lie that extreme philosophers have been selling for 2.5 millennia, is that the fortress you just built should be completely empty and devoid of all intense feeling. They wanted you to believe that the ultimate goal of human evolution is to become a cold, unfeeling stone statue, completely numb to the world around you. You now know that this is a dangerous, cowardly lie. Your fortress is not empty. Deep down in the very center of your psychological citadel, you have constructed a massive, heavy iron furnace, and inside that furnace burns the most powerful, destructive, and creative force in the entire human emotional spectrum. Anger is not your enemy. Anger is the exact evolutionary gift that prevents you from becoming completely complicit in a world full of profound injustice and overwhelming mediocrity. It is the fierce, uncompromising moral demand for basic human respect. The only reason your anger was destroying your life before is because you were letting it run completely wild, carelessly spilling premium aviation fuel all over the dirt to defend a meaningless, imaginary throne. But now, you are the undisputed master architect of your own internal universe. You possess the terrifying discipline to smile calmly when the universe inconveniences you, combined with the explosive, world-changing power to unleash absolute hell when your core moral boundaries are actually threatened. Think about the sheer, undeniable magnitude of what you can accomplish when you finally stop leaking your highly concentrated creative energy over petty nonsense. When you channel that fierce, visceral outrage into a blindingly focused laser beam of analytical precision, exactly as the researchers at the University of California demonstrated, there is absolutely no obstacle on the face of the earth that can withstand your focus. You will use that exact same fire that painted the monumental canvas of Guernica in 35 days. You will harness the exact same violent, magnificent storm that composed Beethoven's greatest symphonies. You will step into the arena of your own life with an unfair advantage over 99% of the human population, because while they are completely exhausting themselves, fighting ghosts and desperately defending their fragile pride, you are quietly stockpiling a massive reservoir of unstoppable, creative fuel. You will never again apologize for the intense fire burning inside of your chest. But you will hold yourself to an absolutely ruthless standard of exactly where and when you choose to unleash it. If it is just your ego crying out for cheap attention, you will ruthlessly crush it with silence. You will let the insult pass right through you like the wind. But if it is the deep, roaring demand for true justice, absolute excellence, and profound personal growth, you will open the heavy iron doors and let that fire forge your ultimate destiny. The illusion of the flawless victim is permanently shattered. The era of the short-lived madness is officially over. You now hold the heaviest, most dangerous weapon in the human psychological arsenal directly by the handle. Do not ever waste it on a cheap fight again. Take your magnificent fire, protect it with your life, and use it to build an empire so incredibly undeniable that it will echo through eternity. The choice is staring you directly in the face. You can close this video and continue wasting your precious mental energy on bruised pride, or you can become the absolute master of your own mind. If you are finally ready to stop being a pathetic slave to your fragile ego and start channeling your righteous fire to build an unstoppable legacy, you need to join us right now. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, and leave a comment below telling me exactly what monumental goal you will conquer with your awakened power. Make your fire build your empire. See you next video.